Many things happen during wars: carnage, broken homes, loss of homes, and unnecessary deaths. World War I almost brought the world to its knees, and I mean that both figuratively and literally. The war that began as a gesture of goodwill, more like trying to uphold justice, was transformed into a pillage that even the world powers did not envisage. You may wonder what happened in the war. Was it one of the fairy tales historians want to sell? Or was the war a reality to be dreaded? All of these questions will be answered in today's video. Watch to the end to understand how much destruction the First Global War brought and how it set the pace for another inevitable war. However, before we go into the juicy details of this feat of history, leave a thumbs up on this video if you find it interesting. You should also subscribe to this channel for more interesting facts about historical events. Almost every country in the world has had its fair share of wars. Bolshevik Revolution, Balkan War, and the American Civil War, amongst other catastrophic wars. But only twice has the whole planet of Earth engaged in wars, both of which were like doing the devil's bidding, but in a fascinating way. World War I began in 1914, but had a lot of fuel to the fire that escalated at the time. The war was a play of power, an exercise of dominance, and a clash of ideologies. When the war commenced, different factions of civilians felt a need for the war. Philosopher kings that never go into battle, Inky championed the thwarted interests of the ordinary person into a global mumbo-jumbo that would only break them first. So apart from the death that was like a forest fire, why do people dread this particular war? Maybe because it exposed the world blocs to the possibility of staging a global crisis to gain more power, or it just established the truth of humanity's existence as a ticking time bomb. Either way, the 1914 to 1918 war brought the world to a standstill. Every facet grumbled, and after the destruction ended, nothing stopped, the tension was not quelled, and normalcy was not restored. It was like a new platform created for the world, and tensions even today are yet to be eased. The war that is widely known as the First World War is a culmination of many emotions, logic and science. Although history would want us to believe that it was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie Ferdinand that precipitated the war, far be it. It was a war of innovation, production and power. Here are some things that you may not have known. Number 5. It was a war of production. World War I, among other things, was a war of production. By this, we mean that the war saw the manufacturing of many ammunition and amenities. Countries that were not actively involved in the fight contributed to the war by producing one thing or the other for countries that were allies with. National resources were mobilized as each combatant nation raced to supply enough men and equipment to its armed forces. Early failures in munitions manufacturing in Britain led to the full government intervention in war production. The government would not have any setbacks in its quest to prove itself a works power in the recent world tussle. So they intervened and beefed up ammo production, food for combatants, and other needed supplies. This intervention aided its industries to produce nearly 4 million rifles, 250,000 machine guns, 52,000 aeroplanes, 2,800 tanks, 25,000 artillery pieces, and over 170 million rounds of artillery shells by 1918. Number 4. A war of innovation. A famous saying is that wars bring out the best or the worst in people. The First Global War began as the age of revolutionary innovation and invention. It brought about a change in the arsenal of rival nations. Technology blossomed tremendously. There was an exponential improvement in weaponry, and military technology provoked tactical changes as each side tried to gain an advantage. However, the introduction of aircraft into war left soldiers and civilians vulnerable to attacks from above for the first time. This is why most historians will call this war the beginning of mayhem, and no one knew how things would go and what weapons were created. It was a grueling war, and everybody had to strive to create the best nuclear weapons. Manufacturing, chemistry, and communications all saw significant advancements. The First World War was the first major conflict in which British deaths in battle outweighed deaths from sickness due to medical improvements. The origin of nuclear weapons can be traced back to this conflict. Number 3. It's a global war. The 1914 war was the first global war. The majority joined the side of the Entente or the Allies, including Serbia, Russia, France, Britain, Italy, and the United States. Germany opposed the Allies. Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire, this coalition formed the Central Powers. What began as a minor battle in Southeast Europe quickly escalated into a war between European empires. Britain and its empire's participation in the war made this a genuinely global struggle fought on a geographical scale like never seen before. Not just on the Western Front, but also throughout Eastern and Southeast Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, there was fighting. The truth is that the battle engulfed most of the globe, leaving scars in its wake. Number 2. It draws power from the people. Unlike the Second World War, the First World War could have been averted. The war began due to human actions, inactions, and resolutions. Over 65 million men were conscripted or volunteered to fight in enormous citizen armies. Also, millions of civilians contributed to the war effort by working in the industry, agriculture, or jobs left open when men enlisted. The war vegetation drew on a deafening degree of camaraderie between and amongst people in the country. Everyone wanted to be involved one way or the other. The only way to win was for everyone to pull together. Some countries were forced to surrender because their people, who had been pushed to their physical and emotional limitations, had lost the will to fight. The First World War was also a people's war. Invading armies massacred populations in the places they took control of. A classic case of the strong preying on the weak. Everybody wanted to exercise some degree or level of power. At this point, the true meaning of war became crystal clear to those who clamoured for the war. Attacks on civilians became increasingly rampant as each nation tried to break their opponent's home morale and diminish popular support for the war. Propaganda demonized entire countries and attacked the national characters of enemy people. Number 1. Widespread destruction. War does not do anything well. You would agree that no matter the course of war champions, it only leaves debris of terror, death, and destruction. World War I is no different. This war acted as a possible marker showing how the world can go against itself in a matter of days based on one feud or the other. Statistically, an estimated 16 million soldiers and civilians lost their lives, and an almost infinite number of soldiers and civilians were practically and psychologically impaired. The conflict also profoundly changed the social and political landscape of the planet. It expedited transitions and beliefs towards gender and class and led to the defeat of the Russian, Austro-Hungarian, and Ottoman empires. The expense of total war and the subsequent rebuilding destroyed both the victorious European allies and the defeated Central Powers economies. For Britain, the human cost of the First World War was staggering the production of a new language of reminiscence which persists to this day. It can be seen in war monuments in cities, towns, schools, places of worship, workplaces, and rituals such as Remembrance Sunday, the 2-minute silence at 11 a.m. each 11th of November. World War I transformed the belief system of the world. It did more than destroy the Central Powers and gave humans the capacity to tweak certain existing frontiers, station specific rules, and deny sanity throughout the world. Please let us know what you think about the things that happened during the war, its consequences, and the aftermath in the comment section below. Leave a big thumbs up on this video if it's been of help, and if you're new to our channel, subscribe and turn on your post notification. See you in the following video.